guys, DraftCast with Tony Pauline, episode 2. Tim Wood alongside draft guru Tony Pauline. Tony, how goes it up there in New York City for you?
Still a bit cold, but plenty of football to get me through this. I mean, we had the two semifinal games in the college football playoffs, and then round one of the NFL playoffs, which isn't over. Tim and I taped our episodes Monday at noon, and we still have one more playoff game. But plus a lot of work, a lot of film work on my end, a lot of getting the reports ready for the Essentially Sports Big Board. So even though it's cold out, there's always something at this time of year to keep me busy.
Great, great NFL action, great college football playoff action, and some big moves where it relates to the draft, which is where we start today. Tony, some big moves on the declaration front. Where do you want to start?
Yeah, so it seems. I mean, let's start with Ty Simpson, the quarterback from Alabama. It's a sort of will he or won't he? Ty Simpson made the public announcement on social media a week ago that he was entering the draft. It was a questionable decision. Simpson played very well in September and October at Alabama, but November was a different story, as was the second game of the college football playoffs, where he was just he did not look good. He did not look NFL ready. Everyone believes that, and especially myself, he should go back to school for another year. He makes that public announcement after 15 starts that he is going to enter the draft. This morning before the show, I texted some people to get some updates, and somebody said Ty Simpson's going back to school. I did a little bit of research. I found that he is getting NIL offers around $6.5 million to go back and play college ball this coming fall. The University of Miami is evidently one of the schools that are putting a major offer in front of Ty Simpson. Now, the rule, as far as I know it, and it's always been, just as long as he hasn't signed with an agent, he can always withdraw his public declaration and play college football this upcoming season. If he signed with an agent, that's a different story. You look at Cam Ward. Cam Ward, after the 2023 season with Washington State, first said he was going to enter the draft portal. Then he made the announcement he was going to enter the NFL draft. He was on the Shrine Bowl roster that year. He was expected to play in the 2024 Shrine Bowl roster. He eventually signed that NIL deal with Miami, retracted his declaration to the NFL, had a magnificent year, ended up as the first pick of the draft. If Ty Simpson's smart, he'll follow what Cam Ward did just a couple of seasons ago.
Explain the thinking to me here, though. I've been covering the game for 25, 30 years here. You're the draft guru. We're not agents, but I don't understand the advice in
Right.
terms I know it's a thin draft, but I don't understand the advice. Give me some thought process here.
Well, number one, he's an overage prospect. He's going to be 24 years old. That really shouldn't matter at the quarterback position because if you're a good quarterback these days in the NFL and you take care of yourself, you can play well into your 30s. So a guy like Ty Simpson, if he turns his game around and physically takes care of himself, he's a bit of a smaller guy, but physically takes care of himself, he should be able to, make a nice salary the next 10 years. But they're looking at a 4-year guarantee with a possible 5th-year guarantee as a first-round pick versus 1 year of NIL earnings. I'm sure that is playing into it. And I don't know Ty Simpson's, thought process right now. He just may be done with college football. He may be telling himself, I'm ready for the next level, even though he's not. So there's a variety of different factors that go into it. But I agree with you. I mean, the thought process, in my opinion, should be I have a better chance of being a higher pick, a more NFL ready quarterback if I play on the college field in 2026 versus entering the draft, maybe being hooked up with a team that doesn't know how to develop quarterbacks, and I'm not NFL ready.
I mean, this league eats up low start quarterbacks, and even though it's it starts with Alabama. I'm not calling him Trey Lance, but I mean it starts with Alabama, but it's still not a lot of starts. It reeks of short sightedness.
Who was the last first year starter from Alabama that came out, entered the draft, and was a first round pick? Mac Jones. And I don't think yet his career has turned out the way he has hoped.
Exactly. All right, so we've got other prospects. Jack Andrews from Texas.
Yeah, the tight end from Texas, surprising decision. 33 receptions for 346 yards this year, was up and down. I like Andrews. He was actually one of Fernando Mendoza's favorite targets back in 2024 when they were both at University of Cal. Andrews is big, he's athletic, but he doesn't have that production. I mean, his production is tied to Arch Manning. It's been kind of spotty. When you look at this tight end class, it's very deep starting in the middle part of round two, rounds three, rounds four. I think Andrews can compete with those guys. I just don't know that the production is there. I was a bit surprised he made this choice.
Now we go to a bunch of Ohio State guys. So let's start with Caden McDonald.
Yeah, not just a bunch of Ohio State guys, a bunch of Ohio State guys on the defensive side of the ball, guys that are going to be first round picks, guys that are going to be top 10 picks. You mentioned Caden McDonald will compete to be the top defensive tackle in this year's draft. Was a rotational player in 2024 when they had that dynamite front four on the defensive line that helped win them the national championship. Took off like a house on fire this year. He's explosive. He's athletic. He's a big, wide body guy. He's more than a gap occupier. He consistently makes plays and consistently blows up plays. I think McDonald made a right decision. I think he's going to end up somewhere in the middle part of round one, anywhere from picks 15 to 25. Then you got the other two players, Arvell Reese and Caleb Downs. Both, I believe, will be underdrafted. And what I mean by that is Arvell Reese and Caleb Downs will both be graded as one of the top 3 to 5 players in this year's draft, but they're going to be selected a little bit later because the quarterback's going to go early. Maybe we get an offensive player up there. You look at Arvell Reese, he's a linebacker. You look at Caleb Downs, he's a safety. They're not high priority positions, but they're both great players, and they both fit a variety of schemes. Understandable. I mean, the history of Ohio State is they lose a lot of underclassmen because they have outstanding players that project well to the next level. I think all three of these Buckeyes fit that scope.
Now, we've got a 2-round mock draft from you coming this week. Any preview in terms of Reese or Downs?
I think Downs is probably going to fall into the top towards the end of the top 10, maybe Cincinnati. Uh, Arvell Reese probably is going to end up with the New York Giants, who need a lot of help defending the run. I mean, you look at Arvell Reese; he's a 3 down linebacker. He can cover, he can play the run, he can play the run in pursuit. He can stack against the run, and he can blitz when you want to. I think all too often, when it comes to linebackers, people try and broad brush or pigeonhole guy. Is this guy an edge rusher? Arvell Reese, in my opinion, is a linebacker who can also rush the passer when you need him. Both will be top 10 picks in my mock draft.
And that takes us nice segue. We'll take a look at the draft board. We mentioned it last week. It's an ever evolving product. Uh, essentiallysports.com/NFL-draft-board. That's where you can get the latest looks, and this is just the start, folks. As we've said many times, this is just the start of the board. It's already started to get a little sexier since last week. Just the start of the board. One of my favorite parts of this is you can actually just star this on the side and create a watch list. Create your watch list. It'll go right onto your watch list where you can kind of take a look at your own players. But take a look at the draft board at Essentially Sports. Again, just beginning. Uh, we've still got all the scouting reports to come in, right, Tony?
Oh, thanks for reminding me about that. But yes, I already started the scouting reports. It's a long process. All the non-power four schools and the small school guys are done. I'll be starting the ACC reports this week. We'll hopefully have them done and ready to go before I leave for the Shrine Bowl. So yeah, I mean there will be probably some 700 players graded when all is said and done, and of those 700 players, we'll probably have about 400 to 500 of them will include scouting reports. So it's not just the guys that are selected in the first round or on day two or in the late rounds, but it's also those high priority free agents that you'll need information about when your favorite team signs them. And these guys are battling in camp for a roster spot and really look good in camp next summer. You'll have information on them at our draft board at Essentially Sports.
Very, very nice. Well, looking forward to the two round mock as well this week. Uh, get a little bit more inside the mind of the draft guru. All right. So next up we talk. It's time to get to the scouts notebook, and we talk about the Chick-fil-A bowl a little bit, right? The two combatants.
I mean, you saw QB1 versus QB2 in the Indiana Oregon game. It really wasn't much of a game. I mean, Indiana took hold of it from the get go and never looked back, as they did against Alabama. Indiana has not played a close game in these playoff games because they're the better team. But it was interesting because there's been talk. Could Dante Moore be the first pick of the draft? Is Fernando Mendoza a lock for the first pick of the draft? I really don't like to base things on just a single game, but I do believe that game was sort of telling because most people believe that Fernando Mendoza, of the two quarterbacks, is the most NFL ready. He's the guy that, if you want a rookie quarterback to step under center at some point in time in September of 2026, he's the guy, and that's what he proved in the game against Oregon. He wasn't phenomenal. I mean, 17 of 20 because passing. He's a very accurate quarterback. Only 177 yards, but did throw 5 touchdowns and has done what he did all season long. Moved Indiana up and down the field, doesn't make bad mistakes. Had that one fumble which he of his own which he recovered, but he just played productive, mistake-free football. Wasn't
That
the
was
same.
kind of a Drake May day, quite
Yeah.
honestly. 17 to
Oh,
20, not a ton of yards, not a ton needed when you have the defense stepping up for you like that.
and you have your receivers making big plays. He helps that, but the receivers make big plays. On the other hand, Dante Moore, 24 of 39, 285 yards, 2 TDs, 1 interception, the first pass of the game, which went for a pick six, and then 2 lost
A lot of
fumbles.
garbage yards though.
Exactly, because especially at the end, especially in that last quarter. And you're absolutely right about that. But the thing about Dante Moore is this: we know he's got great upside. We know he's very athletic. We know he's probably better making plays outside the pocket or with his legs than Fernando Mendoza. But we also know he's more of a risk. He's the gamble. He could be a better quarterback 2 or 3 years down the road than Fernando Mendoza, but he could also be a bust. I think Dante Moore kind of proved the point in that game against Indiana that he's a guy who may have to sit on the sidelines for a little while. You may not want to start him week one. You may be better off sitting him his entire rookie season, if not his entire rookie season, say do what the New York Giants did this year with Jackson Dart. I think that is a definite with Dante Moore, who has 20 starts to his career versus Fernando Mendoza, who started 27 games, will start his 28th game in the national title. So I think
So
while that game
basically,
doesn't cover.
if we play this out, Tony, uh, Dante Moore goes to the Jets, and Aaron Glenn does the same thing that Dayball did with but Dart, kind of uses him as his ace in the hole to buy 6 more games as head coach until he puts more in. Essentially, is what we're saying, right?
I mean, potentially. I mean, we'll talk about more about the Jets versus the Giant. Oh, well, the Jets offense anyway. But with Dante Moore, I think if you start him week one, you could ruin him. You draft him. You have to be patient with him. You have to develop him. You have to give him time, and that means waiting at least half a season, if not a full season. Patrick Mahomes sat on the sidelines his entire rookie season. It's sort of a lost art. You have to have a coach that is very secure in his job and people who know what they're doing. But if you do that with Dante Moore, the rewards and the dividends that come back could be incredible.
It's a fascinating topic, and obviously it's what we're all going to be talking about for the next 2-3 months here, especially if we get that announcement from Moore this week. Uh, in terms of ready to go, did you see what you needed to see out of Mendoza in terms of ready to go franchise quarterback?
Well, I've seen that all season long. It's not just one game. It's all season long the guy has responded. You talk about the game in the Peach Bowl against Oregon. Well, let's go back to the game when the Hoosiers went to Eugene, Oregon, and beat Oregon on their home turf, which is unheard of. I mean, so it's been a buildup of sorts for Fernando Mendoza. It was going into Penn State. in State College when Penn State had nothing to lose and they went for broke with a defense that on paper is talented. And when it looked like the Hoosiers backs were when their backs were against the wall and they were going to lose a game, he drives them downfield, makes that incredible pass to Omar Cooper, who makes an incredible catch in the back of the end zone. It's not just this one game; it's been a slow buildup with Fernando Mendoza, who's shown consistent coaching and has benefited from, in my opinion, the best football coach in America, whether it be college or pro, Kurt Signetti.
Absolutely. Just as an aside, do you see any scenario, because there's a lot of little signs being kind of put out there, and obviously uh, agents want options for their guys, and Signetti's no different. Seems like he's building a dynasty there, but there's these little nuggets being thrown out there that maybe Signetti could go to the Raiders in a package deal. Uh, do you see any possibility of that happening?
I would be shocked. I mean, Signetti's an older coach. He's in his mid 60s, primarily a college coach. Signed a massive deal with the Indiana Hoosiers. Why would he want to go where he is the top man? I mean, he is the king there in Indiana. I mean, could he go there
Has
with Fernando?
everything he could want in terms of control and
And
program building.
remember, Signetti didn't really recruit Fernando Mendoza. He basically bought him, and the Indiana Hoosiers bought him from California, just like they recently, if you will, bought or signed Josh Hoover, the TCU quarterback, who's going to be a Heisman Trophy candidate from TCU, from former TCU quarterback from TCU. So it's not like he has a long relationship there with Fernando Mendoza. I'm sure it's something that's going to be kicked around and speculated because that's what sells these days. But I don't know with the money he's making why Signetti would want to leave Indiana when he's got a good thing. Remember, they also signed his coordinators to huge deals. So there was a plan in place there in Bloomington.
It's all about the one component we can't measure is ego, right? And
Yeah,
and
true.
does Signetti think he can do what Saban didn't do in the NFL, for instance? Like it's gonna be fascinating. I'm with you. It feels like an extreme long shot, but it's fun to talk about. Speaking of things that are being talked about, let's get into some debunking of some hot takes here.
Yeah.
Uh, there's been a couple of wild things being thrown out there this week, and one of them goes right back to the gentleman we've been talking about, Fernando Mendoza.
Yeah, I mean, I'm assuming you're talking about the Jason Whitlock viral
The
video, or
Exactly.
Jason.
The last chance you coach, Jason Brown. He's got a podcast himself. Everybody's got a podcast, right? He's hello. Uh, Jason Brown's got a podcast. He goes on with Jason Whitlock, and he throws out there basically that he sees Mendoza as a fifth rounder. Sees him basically as a comp to Shador Sanders. Where do you go with that?
In the toilet. I mean, that's basically. I think I don't think you give him credit. I think he said he was a fourth rounder. I may be wrong. Now, you look at this, and I'm wondering, is this for shock value or is this a legitimate opinion? And I made sure I watched it because I didn't want to take anything out of context. And he started off by saying that Fernando Mendoza was a stiff, rigid, awkward, statuesque type quarterback, and everything he does is systematic. And I'm saying to myself, well, okay, everything he does is systematic. The team, Indiana, is 15-0. He won the Heisman Trophy, and they're playing for the national championship in a week. So the system is working. Why wouldn't you want to be systematic? It is working. The object is to win games, win championships, win awards like the Heisman Trophy. And when you get into the NFL, you play within a system. I mean, that's what the offensive coordinator, the offensive coach, the head coach has a system, and you have to play within that system. Fernando Mendoza has done an incredible job of it. As far as him being stiff, I mean, 83 rushes for 284 yards with 6 TDs. And remember, that's after they carve out all the lost yardage for the sacks. So and what happens is we're so used to quarterbacks now being 6 foot tall, 6'1.5", and scramble around like the ball inside a ping pong machine, a pinball machine, right? The taller you are, the stiffer you're going to look compared to those smaller quarterbacks. I mean, Fernando Mendoza's got 3 inches on Dante Moore. It's just gonna it just science wise. Dante Moore is very likely to look a lot looser than the much taller Fernando Mendoza. So I don't buy that. He talked about a lot of bubble screens, Fernando Mendoza being reliant on bubble screens. That was true early on. There was a game early on against Illinois where he made a lot of easy passes, but Illinois also won 63-10. Bubble screens are not the reason why he beat Ohio State in that Big Ten title game. It was downfield passes to Charlie Becker to seal the game, downfield passes to Elijah Surratt, which set up the game-winning touchdown. So I don't agree with that. What really annoyed me, which I thought was really over the top, is when he said that Fernando Mendoza doesn't read defenses that well, goes to his predetermined first or second reads, and doesn't feel pressure. Now, as far as him not seeing the field, or remember, Fernando Mendoza graduated from the University of Cal in 3 years. All right? So it tells you something about his intelligence. Granted, classroom intelligence doesn't always transition to football field. But the guy's got a
We've
72
seen it
point.
translate, though. We've seen, like you said,
Right,
week after week after week, we see it translating to him reading defenses.
right. He's got a 72.7% completion percentage. He's thrown 41 TDs to just 6 interceptions. That is almost a 7-to-1 ratio. 7-to-1 ratio. You want a 4-to-1 ratio for every 4 TDs, 1 interception. If it's a high flying passing offense, maybe you'll consider a 3-to-1 ratio. This guy's got a 7-to-1 ratio. He's lost no fumbles. Now, why am I rambling on about this? Well, quarterbacks who don't read defenses well, quarterbacks who don't sense pressure well, don't sense the rush, don't complete almost 73% of their passes. Throw a lot more interceptions than a 7-to-1 ratio, than 6 interceptions in a year. Don't lose any fumbles. If you can't read a defense, that means you're not finding players primarily in the defensive back secondary, which is going to lead to intercepted passes, or missed throws, or a higher incompletion ratio. If you can't sense the rush, that's going to lead to interceptions or lost fumbles. It's not there for Fernando Mendoza. So I'm just wondering if this is a legitimate opinion, or this is just somebody sending something out there for shock value. I'm going to
I'm
go with
gonna
the line.
I'll take the media side of this, and I'll tell you 100% shock value. That's what Jason Whitlock has become. Loved him as a writer, hate him as a broadcaster, hate him on YouTube. And then you factor in Jason Brown into it. Last Chance U coach, graduated from Fort Hays State, uh, coach community college. Again, a big spot in terms of last chances for prospects, but played quarterback in college. Got a cup of coffee tryout with the Chiefs before playing some Arena League football. But in terms of what he's trying to be now, he is all about shock value. And
Yeah, I'm not going to dismiss his resume, because his
yep,
resume, as far as football is concerned, is better than mine.
sure.
Uh, but I think what happens is, and this always happens every draft, is people will manufacture holes in a prospect's game that aren't there, just for talking points. We talk about Fernando Mendoza being the NFL ready quarterback. Absolutely. And we seek Fernando Mendoza right now. He's not Cam Ward. He hasn't carried his team on his shoulders. He's not Caleb Williams or Jaden Daniels, or Drake May from the prior year. That's true. But I believe Fernando Mendoza can be all those things. He just hasn't had to be. He hasn't been asked to, and it's not necessary. Fernando Mendoza is a big athletic guy with a big time arm, and he's got it going on between the ears. I think there's a lot more that can be put on Fernando Mendoza's plate as a starting quarterback, which leads me to believe that if coached properly, he can be a franchise type quarterback in the NFL.
And then you factor in the intangibles, the leadership factor, the fact. I mean, listen, we're talking about this team, this Indiana team, in the conversation with like a 2019 LSU that was stacked with stars. Now, obviously, a lot of that goes into coach. We put a lot of that on Signetti, but listen, they play the game on the field, and as you said, Mendoza is not making those mistakes. It's not game manager either. He's had some spots where he's had to deliver in the clutch, and he
Right.
has. It's this amalgamation of positives. Like you said, we want to poke the holes. We want to poke the bear. We want to find the negatives so that the drama builds to the draft, right? But boy, when you start putting him down in fourth, fifth round territory, that feels like hot take trash.
And you know what? It worked because we're all
We're
talking about it,
talking
right?
about it.
That video went viral, and
Yep.
everybody's talking about it. They're probably not talking about it the way the way they want them to, or in good light, but everybody is talking about it. So who wins, who loses.
Let's talk about another take that's been hot this week, and that involves uh well, first of all, Todd McShay.
Right,
And we talk about uh he's talking about Dante Moore. He's talking about the New York Jets situation as a
right.
whole. What did you make of McShay's comments?
Well, it's nothing new. I mean, if you watched our show last week, if you read my article about Dante Moore at the beginning of December, I mentioned all these things. I mean, if he goes back to Oregon, I had said back in December, he's going to sign an eight-figure NIL deal, 12 to $15 million, which means that Oregon's going to throw a lot of money in the pot. He's going to have
Thank
incentives
you,
to
Phil
sign.
Knight.
Yeah, he's going to sign endorsements. I did not mention Phil Knight's name. Todd McShay did, and Todd McShay is right about that. So, but that's nothing new. And we also mentioned last week on the show, as I said, his team are basically they are of the mindset that he has to enter the draft. They will give him the information. They will discuss it with him. It's going to be Dante Moore's decision, and one part of the discussion is where he ends up. There's a very small chance he could end up with the Raiders. There's a very large chance he could end up with the New York Jets, whose history with quarterbacks is not good. Now, couple things is the comment was made that not a single player in this draft wants to be a New York Jet. That's just bulk. I mean, some players would prefer other teams. Players are going to go where they're selected, and it's not that no one's going to does not want to be a New York Jet. You also have to remember, Todd McShay has a connection with Joe Douglas. I think I am absolutely correct when I said they both played college football at University of Richmond. When Joe Douglas got the job with the Jets in 2019, he interviewed, or there were reports that he was interviewing Todd McShay to bring McShay on board with the New York Jets. It didn't work out. Probably good for McShay, Douglas, and the Jets. So there is that connection there. And I know getting some of the information I did about what went on with the New York Jets by or through Joe Douglas. I'm sure Douglas has shared a lot of that with Todd McShay, which gives McShay a bad attitude towards the Jets. If you look at it objectively, and that's very oftentimes a tough thing to do with the New York Jets because they're their own they're their own enemies, and they make themselves a punching bag for everybody. I've done it at times, but if you look at it objectively, going to the New York Jets as a young quarterback, on paper anyway, is not necessarily a bad thing. They've got a developing offensive line with two real good young offensive tackles. Shanu is the left tackle is a terrific pass blocker. Armand Membu, who was the seventh pick of the draft, was is turning out to be everything everyone expected. They've got some players on the inside. This is a make or break year for Joe Tippmann. The Garrett Wilson is going to come back. Garrett Wilson is a game controlling, game impacting receiver who was on the sidelines with injury. Garrett Wilson comes back. It should hopefully make Adonai Mitchell a better receiver. Mitchell, who they got from the Indianapolis Colts as part of the Sauce Gardner trade. You've got a terrific young tight end there in Mason Taylor, who the Jets selected in the second round of the 2025 draft. We'll have to wait and see what happens with running back Breece Hall. I know the Jets were open to trading him before the season. They didn't trade him at the trade deadline. We'll see what happens. Do they franchise him? Do they try and sign a long-term contract? I don't think they're going to let him go. But on paper, anyway, the makings are there for a good offense and for a young quarterback to come in, be protected, and have weapons at his disposal. You want to talk about coaching, you want to talk about developing. That's another conversation. But you look at the Jets situation for a young quarterback. It's a lot better right now on paper than it is with the Raiders, who
I
have
mean,
no
on the
receiver.
field. I mean, that's why I added in the wacky morning DJ sound effects, the ding, 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 because it's like ding, ding. Like there's like so many of these. There's a lot of players that you want to play with if you're a quarterback coming into this league. A hell of
Absolutely,
a lot more than Cam Ward had to work with.
and they're all young. I mean, they're
Yeah.
all young. It's not like these guys are towards the end of their career. Now, you got to get a coach in there. You got to develop them. I still think that if the Jets take Dante Moore with the second pick of the draft, you got to sit him in September and through October. You got to be patient with them. You got to have the right mix here. That's been the problem with the Jets, with the Browns, probably with other organizations. It's not that they pick the wrong players as much as they have the wrong coaches there who can't develop the players. That's key. But no, I don't think that. I do not believe for a second that no player in this draft wants to be a New York Jet. And do I think the possibility of ending up with the Jets will be part of the conversation that Dante Moore has when he makes his final decision? I absolutely know that's going to be part of the conversation. I don't know how big of a factor it's going to be.
It's I there's 32 teams. It's like we talk about with the coaches. That's 32 jobs. Okay,
Yep.
so you want to get in the league. You want to get that contract, but you want to be around players. And I just look at it again, as you mentioned, all those players with the Jets. I look at my Patriots, for instance, what May came into. Now, I wasn't a huge fan of May. I won't lie. I don't like the New York, the North Carolina pedigree in terms of when I look at like Howell and Trubisky. But boy, has May proven it wrong. And a large part of that is year two, right coaching staff, an influx of talent, great drafting. Will Campbell comes in for protection, among many others, and the Jets have a lot of that right out of the gate without having to make all those free agent moves. I don't know.
Except the coaching, and that's, I mean, the difference between the Patriots in 2024 and 2025, hands down, is the coach. I think
Yep,
that speaks to my point. Drake May was a much better quarterback. Look at Chicago. I mean, Caleb Williams was a much better
absolutely.
quarterback in 2025 than he was in 2024 because of the coach.
They both had the makings. Now I think May, again, having watched the Patriots every week, May had more of the makings, showed more of it in the last half of 2024 to where I was feeling good regardless of the coach. Williams for sure. Williams still had the makings, but there was still too many decision and
Yep.
and confidence issues that seems
Yeah.
to have just been solved with Johnson and his crew.
Absolutely. I wrote an article about it when it was at the turning point when people were questioning, was Ben Johnson going to put the backup in, the kid from Shepherd College, and forget about Caleb Williams? And what people were telling me is Caleb Williams, go back to that systematic uh, uh, systematic accusation against Fernando Mendoza. Everybody said to me is, listen, Caleb Williams just has to learn to play within the system and not put everything on his shoulders. And what happened was Chicago started running the ball more, running the ball better, and started winning games.
The only thing I'm going to say on Caleb Williams and the Bears, you're out of bailouts from the Pope, okay? Like, get in control of the game sooner. Enough of these Hail Mary endings. Like, you're out of bailouts. The
Yeah.
Pope has intervened enough now. All right. So let's shift gears here a little bit. Let's go to the prospect spotlight, and let's turn our attention back towards another one of the semifinal combatants. Didn't end the way he wanted it to, but boy, he still came. Trinidad Chambliss still came out of that game with a lot of good feelings, but now there's some issues.
Yeah.
Will he? Won't he? And will the NCAA even allow it?
Yeah. Well, I guess that's up to the courts to decide, which I don't believe is a good thing. But Trinidad Chambliss has been wonderful. We'll talk about Carson Beck later on, but Trinidad Chambliss to me has got that it factor. You know something good is going to happen when Mississippi has the ball and he's got the ball in his hands. I got to tell you, I watched that game, watched from start to finish. And even though there was 25 seconds left in the game, I said Trinidad Chambliss is going to drive the Mississippi Rebels down the field. He's going to find a way to get him into the end zone. Mississippi's going to win this game. And I was off by a couple inches because that pass was almost caught. Probably could have called pass interference on Miami in the end zone. But he's got that it factor. I don't think Carson Beck has got that it factor. Chambliss wants to stay in college. He signed a huge NIL deal with Mississippi. He's going to pay him $6 million. The NCAA has said, "I'm sorry, your eligibility has run out." Trinidad Chambliss is not going to go the legal route. They're going to sue through the state of Mississippi, and this is going to be a court battle. I really don't like that. I'm glad that the players are getting all this money because I think they deserve it. They are the ones that are responsible for the billions and billions and billions of dollars in revenue that the NCAA brings in. But I also think there has to be guidelines as far as eligibility, and they have to be enforced because you don't want to have 26, 27-year-old guys, still in college playing against those who just came out of high school that are 19, 20 years old. Remember Chris Wenke, balding Chris Wenke, when he won the Heisman Trophy all those years ago. I think it's a bad precedent. I don't know where it ends. I understand, what Trinidad Chambliss wants. The other interesting thing about this from a draft perspective is sometimes these court battles can take a while. If Trinidad Chambliss wins in the state of Mississippi, does the NCAA appeal? Take it to the federal level, take it to the next level. How long does this go on for? And what happens if we are here in late March, early April, and the courts say, no, we agree with the NC2A, your appeal is denied, your NC eligibility ends. What happens then? Is Trinidad Chambliss all of a sudden going to be in the April draft? Do they have to have a supplemental draft for him in July because it's so close to April's draft? So there's a lot of variable factors, and there's a lot of questions to be asked if the courts uphold the NCAA waiver, pushing away the waiver, saying not allowing the waiver, and how long this drags out.
It's it's like when the refs take over the game too much. Now we're gonna have to wait on the courts to figure out where we're gonna see this guy, how we're gonna see this guy. Um, I don't know if how do you feel in terms of Chambliss and what you've seen, regardless of the NIL money? Uh, should he come out in this draft?
I'd like to see it. I think even if Ty Simpson is in the draft, Trinidad Chambliss is the third quarterback that will be selected. I could see him as a late first round pick. He's not the polished product. He's going to be under 6 foot tall, which is going to be a red flag for some teams. But like I said, he's got that it factor. Good things are going to happen, or you got good reason to believe that good things are going to happen when the ball's in his hands. We talk about Fernando Mendoza answering the call, answering the bell week after week after week. Trinidad Chambliss has done that as well when he was the backup quarterback. Would I like to see him? The only reason I'd like to see him in the draft is because I think it's a bad precedent that this guy has played on the college level for so many years. The eligibility's run out, except if a court makes a decision that he can play another year of college ball.
Yeah, it's going to be fascinating to see how it plays out. There's no precedent on this one in terms of just figuring out where where it's all playing out with the
Well,
NCAA.
I
So
disagree with that. Remember Diego Pavia, the quarterback of Vanderbilt. The NCAA said his eligibility was over. He went to court and got a decision, I believe, in August The court said, yeah, you can play another year. So there may be precedent as far as this sort of thing happening. Look at Diego Pavia, who was what, second in the Heisman Trophy voting. So we'll see, and I'm sure they're going to bring that case up.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I kind of when I said no precedent, what I meant more was just it's evolved. How these things play out with the
Yeah,
NCAA
yeah.
have evolved so quickly that almost like what happened last year doesn't even apply this year.
And I was thinking about this before our show. I mean, it was what, 10, 12 years ago that Maurice Claret and Mike
Yeah,
Williams brought the NFL to the court, to the Supreme Court to say, hey, listen, you know, this is basically you're suppressing us. This is an oppression of our working rights. We want to be in the draft, and the court said, sorry, this was collectively bargained between the league and the union that you have to be 3 years removed from high school in order to enter the draft. And Maurice Claret and Mike Williams were screwed. I mean, because they signed with agents and they basically had to sit out a year.
all right, so let's get on to our next topic, which is you want to take a look back a little bit, right?
Yeah, I think this is apropos considering that the Philadelphia Eagles were knocked out of the playoffs yesterday. Their outstanding right tackle, Lane Johnson, has got a decision to make. Is he going to continue to play on Sundays? Is he going to retire? If he retires, he's going to be fast tracked to the Hall of Fame. There's no doubt about it.
For sure.
Uh, but I was taken back to the 2013 draft when Lane Johnson was selected. Now, on paper, the 2013 draft is going to go down as probably one of the worst of the past 25 years, if not longer than that. Because, I mean, except for a few players here and there, like Lane Johnson, the draft was a bust. But people also don't realize the 2013 draft also changed the face of the way drafts were presented. And a lot of people don't realize it because the draft at that time was still held at Radio City Music Hall. And for years, when it was at Radio City Music Hall and the theater at Madison Square Garden, what used to happen was you'd have all the teams with their tables. You see them now with the helmets where they call them the picks and they write out the cards. And then behind them was the media. And then behind them in the back, especially at Radio City Music Hall in the second and third tier, were the fans. And what they did this one year, 2013, was they brought the fans down from the balcony, put them in the orchestra level behind the tables, and they put the media back up in the third level. And it was mayhem. It was nuts. It was like a big party. But I'll never forget because I was on the floor, FDNY, New York Fire Department, walking up and down the aisles, getting people out of the aisles, basically threatening the league that they were going to shut down the draft because there was such mayhem on the floor. But it was a lot of fun. It wasn't bad mayhem. It was a lot of fun. You remember Johnny Manziel coming out doing this, and it really turned. It was a different aura. It was a different feeling. It was like a big college party. I was working with the Philadelphia Eagles at that time. Worked with them for a while on the media side. And what happened was the Eagles had the fourth pick of the draft. And Radio City Music Hall was nice enough to give us a broom closet for all the sites for these teams. The Carolina Panthers were using it. We were using it with the Eagles. Right after the Eagles made their pick, we had to run back there because we had a live broadcast, and we had to talk about their pick. So it's the third pick of the draft, and I work with a buddy of mine, Chris McPherson, real good guy who's still there with the Eagles. We go down because once the Eagles make their pick, we got to run into this broom closet and do a live feed. I got to give my thoughts on Lane Johnson. And I'll never forget this. I will never forget this. Behind me, there's a group of people wearing Oklahoma Sooner jerseys and jackets and stuff like that. And next to them in the next section are people wearing Oregon jerseys and Oregon shirts and stuff and things like that. I realized that the people wearing the Oklahoma Sooner stuff are the family of Lane Johnson. The people wearing the Oregon Duck stuff are Dion Jordan's family. Uh, I think they were, yeah, Oakland Raiders are on the clock. Roger Goodell gets up to the microphone, makes the announcement. Oakland Raiders have traded the pick. The Miami Dolphins are now on the clock. What happens is Lane Johnson's family goes crazy. Everybody in the world thinks that the Miami Dolphins moved up to that third pick to get Lane Johnson. They needed a left tackle. Chris Long, I believe they lost him in free agency. It's a lock. And the Lane Johnson people, they are high-fiving each other. It's like they had the winning number, the winning lottery ticket, and they're going crazy. And I'm watching the Dion Jordan's family are just looking at these people like with their mouths open, like they had just lost out on, on a zillion dollars. Everybody thinks the Miami Dolphins are taking Lane Johnson. Roger Goodell gets to the microphone. With the third pick of the draft, the Miami Dolphins select Dion Jordan. And I'm watching this dynamic, and Lane Johnson's family, it's like somebody let the air out of the balloon. They're like, what happened? We had the winning number on our lottery ticket. Wait, the last number isn't a seven, it's a one. And Dion Jordan's family go crazy. They're high-fiving. They just won the lottery. It was the most instantaneous change of emotion I have ever seen. The Philadelphia Eagles, with the next selection, take Lane Johnson. We know about his incredible career. Dion
Kind of
Jordan,
worked out. Not so much in the room for the Johnson family, but kind of
yeah,
worked out in the long term, right?
it sure did. It didn't work out for Dion Jordan, who had a lot of problems off the field, never lived up to expectations. I think that one moment was probably the best NFL moment for Dion Jordan and his family. In preparing for the show, it's kind of funny because I went back and I wanted to make sure, yeah, it was the Raiders who traded down, and I was watching an old video from NFL Network from their broadcast, and NFL Network, everybody thought it was going to be Lane Johnson, and when it was Dion Jordan, they were like, "Oh, Mike Mayock, friend of mine, gets on. He starts comparing Dion Jordan to Jason Taylor, Hall of Famer, and all these other guys, and just he was fractional compared to what he did and the
I
Dolphins.
remember I remember that broadcast, and it was almost like they were so caught off guard that they felt this
Everybody was.
need to suddenly go to over the top hyperbole.
That's exactly what I mean. If you watch it, when they announced like Deion Jordan's name, it was like what? And Miami gave away. Not only did Miami pick the wrong person, they gave away, I believe, two first round picks that they had that year, and a second round pick. They gave away a lot of draft capital to the Raiders to move up, which the Raiders eventually screwed up on. And they picked the wrong player.
All right, so let's get into some mailbag questions. Then first, I just want to do a quick reminder to everybody. Check out the draft board on EssentiallySports.com. Our boy Tony Pauline. Again, you've got all the picks. You've got all the information. More information coming. You set up your own watch list. Check that out at EssentiallySports.com. That's going to be an ever evolving thing as we get closer and closer to the draft, and excited to see all the work. Well, you're excited about the work. You love this time of year. You've been doing all the film work already, but you love the finishing touches that get to this draft board, don't you?
It's funny because I am, but now I'm like chomping at the bit. I can't wait to get to it. By the second week of April, beginning of April, I'm like, let it be over. Okay. So yeah, yeah. Get me
Vacation
when
time, huh?
yeah.
Bora Bora
get me
time.
get me when I'm in a good mood.
Yep, for sure, for sure. Well, check out the draft board, essentiallysports.com. Uh, like we mentioned earlier, two round mock draft coming up on essentiallysports.com later this week as well. So get ready for that as well. Let's finish the show here, Tony, with some mailbag. Let's delve into the mailbag. Uh, hit some fan questions. We start on Reddit. Uh, let's see here. Jason from Reddit. Matt LaFleur's future is in serious doubt with the Packers, but is John Harbaugh the right fit? Now, right before we went to taping
Yeah,
today, some further clarification came out there. There's some sources saying that LaFleur is now working on an extension with the
yeah,
Packers, but
yeah.
there's no doubt that it's in the atmosphere now, given the way that ended for the Packers, that Harbaugh might be in play there.
Yeah, I don't think LaFleur is in serious danger with the Packers. I think a lot of his assistants are, and you're going to see some movement there. He'll probably bring in new assistants, coordinators. As
Does
far as
he doesn't have the capital to be
Well,
waving off that want, right? I mean, that seems like what ultimately, even 18 years for Harbaugh, seemed like they wanted to make some moves with assistants, and it wasn't happening for Harbaugh in Baltimore, and that's what may have ended things there. Doesn't seem like LaFleur has the cachet there, especially coming off that loss, to wave off any assistant move wants from the team.
yeah, I also think it's a bit short sighted. I don't think they're getting John Harbaugh. I don't think, a publicly owned team is going to sign the check that's necessary to bring Harbaugh in and give him the control that he wants. So number one, I don't think LaFleur is going anywhere. I think his assistants will. And even if he does, I think it's a long shot that John Harbaugh ends up in Green Bay.
All right. Alexis from New Mexico, big Eagles fan. Is this finally the year when the Eagles get rid of A.J. Brown after all the issues in the 2025 season? Do you see any future where they get back into the picture, or A.J. Brown is back with the Eagles?
Remember where you heard this and keep this in the back of your mind. When there were talk in the middle of the season about AJ Brown being traded, people I spoke to said keep an eye on the New England Patriots. Remember, Mike Vrabel's relationship with the Tennessee Titans when he was the head coach really started to fracture because he wanted the organization to sign AJ Brown to a very large deal. They didn't do that. They traded him to the Eagles. They then selected Traylon Burks, who was an utter bust with that first round pick, with the hopes that he would replace AJ Brown. So I think AJ Brown could be on his way out with the Philadelphia Eagles. I absolutely think he does, and I think that the New England Patriots and Mike Vrabel will be big suitors or will be in the conversation to trade for AJ Brown. Given the relationship with Mike Vrabel when he was in Tennessee, this is what I've been told. Never mind the fact that how much of a better quarterback you're going to make Drake May by giving him a weapon such as AJ Brown.
I was salivating uh, when this was in the ethos around the trade deadline, and now to hear you say it again, it makes sense. It
Yep.
makes sense, and I look at May's evolution. Just what he did with a guy like Diggs this year, as
Yeah,
opposed to what he had
exactly.
in year one. Now you bring in a guy like Brown. Oh my, oh my! I love what you're throwing out there, Tony.
Yeah. And it's
Thank you
legit.
for
I,
that.
I mean, this is what I had heard all along, so it is absolutely legit.
All right, next up, Tim in uh let's see, in Los Angeles. 49ers. The 49ers have battled injuries throughout the season and now
Yeah.
lose George Kittle to the Achilles injury. Do you believe they have what it takes to go all the way, or are they just one snap away from falling apart?
I would say yes and yes. I think they can go all the way because they have a great coach. They have a very good quarterback who's got to stop throwing interceptions the way he did yesterday. I also think you look at the rest of the teams in the playoff hunt: the Seattle Seahawks, the Los Angeles Rams, the Chicago Bears. I don't think there's any juggernaut there that is really just such an overwhelming force that is going to can wipe out the San Francisco 49ers. I do think that if Purdy can't stay away from the mistakes, especially against Seattle, going into Seattle, going against that head coach, they could be wiped out. I think they could make a run as long as they play good football, but the injuries obviously are piling up, and they're not good, especially with a guy like George Kittle.
Boy, but they've played. I mean, Tongas has come on. They've played
Yep.
well through all these injuries, through all the defensive injuries. I Boy, with injuries right now, especially Kittle, I like the way Tongas has played for them, and I like the chemistry that Purdy has with him. My biggest thing is 1 week at a time. Like you said,
Yeah.
are they going to see enough? Are they going to learn enough from week 18? Are they going to make enough adjustments to be able to buy Purdy some more time to make smarter decisions?
Yeah, you talk about Kittle. They also lost Nick Bosa early in the year. They lost Fred Warner.
Fred
Those
Warner,
guys,
yep.
the heart of the defense. But again, it comes down to good coaching. And good coaches know how to adjust, and
Next
realign
man
things.
up.
And that's what the Niners coaching staff has done.
All right, Maddie in New Jersey. Which head coach candidate is being glossed over, being overlooked
Right.
among all the John Harbaugh, Kevin Stefanski hype, and why do you feel that's the case?
The answer is there aren't that many out there. We talked about last week how it's such a shallow pool of head coaching candidates. That's been out. It's been reported for a while. If there's one guy who I really like, who I think people aren't talking about, it's Paul Kelly, the assistant head coach to Sean Payton with the Denver Broncos. You look at how that team is done. You look at Kelly's resume. There are some people who tell me they think Kelly needs to stay at Denver for a bit more seasoning, a bit more experience. But I believe if there is one guy, when you look at that team, when you look at the tutelage that he's received under Sean Payton, I think Paul Kelly, the assistant head coach of the Denver Broncos, is someone who really does not get a lot of talk or get the credit he's due as far as being a head coaching candidate.
Very interesting, and he's going to obviously be in the spotlight this next week in the Broncos getting on the field in the divisional round. All right, finally, let's see here. Amy from Florida. Carson Beck has just steadily boosted his stock in this playoff run. How similar is he to that of Will Howard's last year? Just
Yeah, well,
consistently stepping up in the big moments.
I mean, remember, after the college football playoffs last year in Ohio State's run, those 4 games, people were talking about Will Howard as a day 2 pick. He ended up what, as a 6th round choice of the Pittsburgh Steelers. And absolutely, Carson Beck deserves credit for what he's done. He wasn't much of a factor against Texas A&M. I believe they took the ball out of his hands. He was much better the following week against Ohio State. He was terrific this past weekend in the win over Mississippi. There's going to be a lot of hard questioning of Carson Beck about poor play. A lot of interceptions earlier this year. I think it was it Louisville? He had 4 interceptions. I may need to be checked on that one, but he's thrown a lot of picks the past 2 years. There's going to be questions about that. My concern about Carson Beck is he's improved his draft stock. Has he become a 1st round pick? No, absolutely not. My concern about Carson Beck is he's played well, but unlike Trinidad Chambliss, he doesn't have that it factor. When Trinidad Chambliss, and I think this is more than my personal opinion, people may disagree. When Trinidad Chambliss drops back and is looking to throw the ball, you're excited. You think that you really believe something good is going to
There's a
happen.
belief of what can happen.
Exactly. When Carson Beck gets back there and throws the ball, you're not surprised at all if it's an interception. You're not surprised at all if it's a bad throw. And he's only got one more game. It's not like he's got another season to turn that around. As Carson Beck has played well, he deserves all the credit for his improved play. Absolutely. When scouts look at players, when they look at prospects, what does this prospect do well? And Carson Beck has shown us the past 2 games what he can do well. But I think there's going to be a lot of hard conversations, a lot of talk about a lot of the bad tape at Georgia, the ups and downs at Miami this year, which is why I don't think Carson Beck is going to go as early as many are presently predicting him.
By the way, there's nothing wrong with being a backup in this league for 15 years, right? I mean, that's what I look at Carson Beck as projecting to.
Kirk,
Maybe he hits his
hey,
shot
listen,
somewhere, but
Kirk Cousins has made almost a $500 million being the backup and number 2 quarterback and a situational starter. I mean,
yeah,
you look at the money that guy's made.
get the right agent, get that bag at the right time, and
Yeah,
keeps cashing in, and it's a hell of a career. Listen, they're not all gonna be franchise quarterbacks. All
absolutely
right,
not. And you're right. They all want to be starting quarterbacks. They all want to be productive starting quarterbacks. I mean, Beck may be a situation like Dante Moore magnified, where if you select him in the middle rounds, you're going to have to be dedicated to sitting him for a year and then taking it from that point on.
let's answer one more bonus here. Kelly from Indiana uh, writes Marcus Freeman from Notre Dame involved in these battery charges. We're both dads. I mean, the question is, it's not a really much of a football question. It's more of a did he do what any other father would have done? And for those who don't know, Marcus Freeman involved in a verbal altercation at his son's high school wrestling match. And I got to tell you, Tony, everything I've seen out of this, um, him being a coach, him being a leader of young men, I but above all, being a dad in that
Yeah.
situation. I mean, I've coached a lot, and I'm a dad of a player. Um, it's hard to take those hats. Hard to separate those hats sometimes, but ultimately, all I saw was a dad sticking up for his son when he was being verbally accosted by somebody.
Well, did you see a video or you just heard about it? Because I haven't seen anything. I read about it, and I didn't see. They said there's no charges
Yeah.
that are being charged, so there are no charges. I mean, this goes on. This goes on every day in America. You know, you got big mouth parents. Not, and from what I read, it was more an assistant coach who's one of the members of his team was wrestling against Freeman's son, and the assistant coach got into a large verbal argument with Freeman's wife, not Freeman himself. And the
Yep.
only reason we're paying attention to the story is because it's Marcus Freeman. If it was some guy in the name of Marcus Thompson who sold cars somewhere in Indiana, no one would be paying attention to it. So I mean, this is nothing out of the ordinary. It seems to be a one-off incident. Marcus Freeman, besides being a terrific coach, seems to be an outstanding person. I put no credence at all. I think the fact is this happened, which happens all the time in this country. And somebody said, hey, Marcus Freeman was involved in this. And that's why the story blew up.
And it's happens way too much these days
Yeah.
in terms of these coaches wanting to kind of get in the spotlight for all the wrong reasons and drag Marcus Freeman into it. So that's our take. You've heard our take for the last hour. Again, check us out on YouTube. Check us out on Spotify. On wherever you find your podcast is where we're gonna be. Um, Tony, what's your Twitter?
At Tony Pauline. It'll be more and more active. We have one more show before I leave for Shrine and Senior Bowl practices, and it's going to get crazy then. So stay tuned.
Tim Wood underscore ES underscore NFL for me, and we may have we may have some surprises up our sleeves for next week's show. We'll see what happens, but always a pleasure, my friend. Great stuff as always. Uh, it's getting more and more exciting week by week as we get into this 2026 draft season, and you can follow it all right here on the ES DraftCast with Tony Pauline.